Welcome to Never Too Serious with Scott and Dave. I'm Scott.
And I'm Dave.
Welcome back, Dave.
Yeah, good to be here, Scott. How you doing?
Pretty good. I'm kind of wondering about all this new COVID information that's coming out. We got Omicron.
Yeah.
New variant.
Yeah, I thought that was a new transformer. I didn't.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
I didn't. I don't even know. Isn't there another one in between the variant D and this one?
So I don't know.
How many variants are there?
I don't know enough about the alphabet that they're using to describe these different variants, but I know that they skipped over a few because one of them was XI, which is also the same name as the leader of China.
Oh no! I was just going to say
they skipped over his name.
I was going to say that that is one I haven't heard of.
Yeah, it would have been politically incorrect to have a new variant that has the same spelling as the leader of.
I was going to say the creator. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure the people that was working in there, got a memo. We're looking for something that might affect a whole lot of people. I'm sure you're onto something.
Yeah, I just thought it was kind of funny
that is funny.
They skipped over some names because of what it might assume.
Yeah, no kidding. Because you know how ticked off everybody was when they said the China flu?
Yeah, that's right.
Because they're like, hey, yo, we don't want that on us.
Yeah, it was so racist. But
yeah,
I think we're figuring out where it came from.
Yeah.
So today's topic is a little bit about Australia and the lockdowns and crazy stuff that's been going on there.
Our people over there are going through a lot of stuff. And I'm saying our people because they are our people.
Yeah.
In fact, everybody is.
Australia is very westernized. I was there in 2016 with my brother and my buddy Jimmy and doing a track and field thing and a little bit of vacationing. And it's a beautiful country. I was on the southwest corner down in Perth.
West side. Yeah.
And it was just beautiful. I'd love to go again, but based on what I'm seeing now with all the COVID lockdowns, no, it's not on my list anymore.
Really?
I don't really want to go.
It's a place I don't like to go a whole lot of places, but I've always wanted to go to Australia for some reason. I don't know what the intrigue was, but I've always wanted to go. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's going to be in my lifetime that I can.
It may be a little while.
Because it doesn't look like anything's lightening up. Mm-hmm. Everybody's got a certain goal to meet where everything gets back, but guess what? What happens when you get there? Every time we've gotten to that line, that line gets pushed out further.
Mm-hmm. So, and with Omicron, that line might be moving around again.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm still waiting to get the first one.
You're still waiting for your COVID diagnosis.
Well, it wouldn't be very fair if I don't get the COVID-19 and then the first variant and I just jump and get the Omicron one, whatever you call it. I need to get these in steps and stages to make it fair.
I'm curious. There might be a human out there who's experienced each one of these variants. I don't know.
It is very possible. And I know I'm joking around, but my father-in-law went through it, and it's very devastating. It really... it
can be, for sure.
He's still recovering. I mean, mind you, he's COVID-free, but he's still recovering from the issues. And, and I pray for him. It's hard to see a strong guy, trying to live a daily life with this stuff. Just without COVID, it's just the aftermath,
Yeah, that and long COVID that folks talk about where they have trouble, recovering from all the other side effects.
Right.
Yeah. Well, so in Australia, it's one of those things where they they're kind of like a massive island almost, and they can kind of treat themselves as an island because there's a whole lot of ocean between them and their next closest folks. And I think they kind of had a mentality early on that they could pretty much keep it out. And obviously you can't. We're in a world economy now. It's not like a few hundred years ago where there wasn't much travel between places.
Well, it's crazy because the whole world was going kind of doing the same thing, give or take. And, they'll lock down. Just like America. We locked down, didn't we? No. Did we ever lock down? No. A group of people did. Mm-hmm. But, we need this and that and this and that to go. So they made excuses for everybody else. So the point is you can never lock down. If they would have locked down like literally everybody, and I mean literally, and I mean not one person comes into the country or leaves it. Well, hell, they could leave but don't come back, but nobody ever tried the real lockdown, have they? Because there's always my job told me that, I'm like, sweet, I want to hang out at home for a while. Nope, I'm special. You could go to work. I'm like, wait a minute, that's not locking down. And if I have to go get gas, he's a special dude too. And now we just hung out, so we're spreading it during our lockdown, but that's what they're locking down too.
Yeah. They've done things in stages and the different extreme measures have created, discomfort in some people and riots and others. But for me, it's weird because we went through some of these things early on where we kind of, everything got shut down. We spent a few weeks without anyone really out in the streets. We were still kind of learning about it, but we've learned so much more about it now, and the dangers of it have reduced, but there's still panic, and It's been built up.
It's kind of funny. So let me ask you, Scott, how could it possibly be the dangers reduced, but the panic is worse? It's like somebody's telling a different story.
Messaging is really bad.
It is, isn't it? Or is it really, really good? For somebody else. Somebody's on to something. Just depends on which side it is.
Well, I think that the lockdowns have come and gone in different stages.
Yeah.
And governments have thought that those lockdowns actually had something to do with the reduction. But there's so many different experiences in different countries, and it's hard to kind of really correlate and figure out, well, what is causing, one thing to happen and not that same thing in another area.
It's peculiar, isn't it?
So I wanted to talk a little bit about the country itself. And I think today's going to be kind of focused on that southeast corner of Australia. And I just wanted to show a quick little picture of their country because I think it's important to understand geographically what we're talking about. And I want to say, and trust me, those of you listening to me right now, I am not an expert in Australia. I was there one time. I've known some Aussies before, but I don't really know much about their country or their politics or their government. I know that when I was there, this is when Trump and Hillary Clinton were running for office, and it was on every TV in every place that we went. I couldn't believe how interested in American politics that they were.
It is crazy how the whole world is about that. We don't really pay any attention to any other countries, president here, president there, but there's celebrations in cities, in other countries throughout the world on who gets elected in our state.
I mean, what the hell is a prime minister anyway?
I don't know. I traded in for some prime rib any day.
Yeah. So in Australia, they have several different states or provinces, and if you find I'm saying something wrong, write comments in the video links below. So Western Australia, down south west side is Perth, which is where we went, and then on the south east side, which is where New South Wales and Victoria are located. And the big cities in New South Wales would be Sydney, and then in Victoria is Melbourne. And this whole lockdown, excitement, riots, all this activity is really happening in that southeast corner.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely crazy how bad it has gotten. A little bit of background, how they sort of started off the pandemic. Their first case was in late January of 2020. That was, I could be wrong, but I think that someone was actually on a cruise ship that was an Aussie and brought it back, and eventually actually died from it.
Really?
By March of 2020, the virus had started to spread within the country. They had a lot of early concerns that we had, which was hospitals are going to get overloaded, so we got to do something about it. And so they started to close down pubs and restaurants, and they created this thing that they called it the hotel quarantine system. So they'd use some hotels and they would quarantine people and isolate them in these hotels. Right.
I think they're still doing that in some, like Hawaii or something. I mean, I know there's some places that you still have to go do that.
I bet they are. What was interesting about this particular case is that they created this, and it seemed like, it's a pretty decent idea. I know when I first started to talk to the family about, well, here's what we're going to do if one of us gets, COVID or whatever. I went through the plan. We're going to isolate. We've got space in our house to isolate people if necessary. And, so we kind of laid out a plan, and it made sense that you would have some of these places like the hotel quarantine system.
My wife has said I'm going to have to be put underneath the floorboard of the house.
Yeah, and collect on that life insurance plan.
Yeah, even though I'm still alive.
So the panic sort of started to set in. Supermarkets went empty, just like it did here. Yeah. Toilet paper, couldn't find it. That's why you invest in a bidet. In May, they said life was starting to turn back to normal. The lockdowns, they said, oh yeah, things are working. Well, then they had all of these issues with the hotel quarantine system, which, good idea, but if it's poorly executed, which if it's run by government, typically it's poorly executed, evidently they weren't giving these people proper PPE or training on how to take care of people or sanitize things.
And it's like, well, what's the point? No, you just made a breeding factory.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Maybe they should take the uneducated away from running stuff and let us lowly like people take over.
Yeah. Although I might disagree in that some of these health authorities are highly educated people, but very poor at policy, and much of our policy has come from their suggestions.
Oh.
So,
And so you put on 2 or 3 masks.
Yeah. So this was in May. Things kind of broke down in their quarantine system, started to get kind of ugly. They ended up in July of 2020. Public housing, they locked down a bunch of these. They're kind of like apartments, but they're massive apartments, and they started locking them down. And some of these are run, or not run, but they're basically like lower income sort of apartments, and they locked them down. Couldn't leave, couldn't do really much of anything, and it just created this problem because, again, you're isolated and spreading.
Right.
So it ended up getting kind of bad. They started locking down more and more stuff, creating all these rules like, what's a kilometer in miles for us? Do you know?
It's just a tad.
It's like 2.5 kilometers per mile. Is that what it is?
Oh.
I'm going to look it up.
Let's look that up.
Because producer E is not here today. And otherwise, he would just look it up on the fly. And he's not here. So that creates a bit of a problem with me having to look it all up on myself.
Well, we don't pay him nearly enough.
That's what he would say. So 5 kilometers is actually 3.1 miles. So they had a travel restriction of basically 3 miles. You couldn't go 3 miles away from your home. And they had checkpoints. And so they would actually have people out there, in bunny suits, asking, where are you going? What's your business?
Yeah.
And, it reminds me of stuff that happens in the Middle East, traveling between borders.
Yeah. And, the other thing is this is going on is you've got these, the citizens of Australia, they are, I know that they're not like us 100%, but these are free people. These guys are in their mind a free people. And I know there's some people that don't get it out there. They're like, listen, this is bigger than you. You know, grow up and just follow, get in line. No. This is bigger than what they think. And that means that it's hard for them, and it should be hard for them to essentially follow that line. And my heart goes out to it because we're going through the same thing. However, I think they just took the lead. I think we could look at what they're going through and see what's possible here. We were almost all like pacing ourselves of not the whole world, but a lot of us are doing the same thing during close to the same timing. And as we'll get to, it's how about this? I'll just finish. It's messing with their minds so much because their free mind, free life is now they're dictated so many every aspect.
My guess is that the countries that normally have more strict rules and less freedom, were probably more okay with lockdowns than we were in like the Western society.
Absolutely. Like China, did they get freaked out when they were forced to wear masks?
Well, we never.
Nope, they've been doing it for 10 years. Or who knows, probably far longer.
Yeah, and we never really hear the truth from them anyway.
Yeah.
So they ended up going back to online school like most of us did, kind of at the same time. They had mandatory masks, which they also instituted in the for the outdoors. We also have had those type of rules, and I remember going through an entire track season having to wear a mask outside, and there's this whole, go back and check our archives. We talked a little bit about this in the podcast.
We might have talked about the guy that was out surfing that the cops went out and pulled him in and arrested him. Surfing by himself. The Dolphins didn't care.
That's funny.
It's pretty bad.
Mm-hmm. So this is, July moving towards August. The private care home deaths started to increase because nursing homes, it was starting to spread among the most vulnerable. Sounds similar to New York.
Well, it does. Mm-hmm. And you also touched on earlier that they weren't keeping up on the right things. They weren't doing the right things to, facilitate a pandemic or and so it was just breeding grounds.
Yeah. And a lot of mistakes along the way.
And then it happens to be with the most vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And so, it's pretty disturbing, unfortunately.
I agree. August, they started their stage 4 lockdown, which is very restrictive, more restrictive than they had already had. They instituted, and a lot of this stuff is happening, like I said, in the southeast corner of Australia. They had curfews 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. You couldn't be out on the streets.
Yeah, because you can't pass. You're not going to catch it in between those other times.
Yeah.
The really bad times is 8 p.m. to 5 p.m. or whatever you said.
As if the virus has a bedtime.
Right. And this is the thing that gets me, because these are free thinkers. Mm-hmm. And these people are sitting there going, this doesn't make sense. And then they tell them that you have to abide by it. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't make sense. That's what hurts. Mm-hmm. We'll think for ourselves because you guys sound crazy. And nope.
There are sacrifices in freedom. There just is. And it's really sad that people are willing to sacrifice their freedoms for what they think is safety.
Yeah.
So finally, a protest started to really happen, and, Aussies were not pleased. In October in 2020, they started to reopen everything. Now, this is, as we're recording right now, we are into December of 2021. So we're talking about a year ago, they were experiencing this sort of cycle. Now, we're 2021, and we can look back at 2021.
Right.
So I brought in a few clips to show some news stuff, and I thought it was kind of enlightening because they were already going through this for an entire year, and they thought that things were finally, all these restrictions and all this stuff, it's finally over.
Yep.
Oh no,
well,
not
guess
over.
Guess what? They can't have that.
No, they cannot have that. So this first clip, we're talking a little bit of news. And so this one is from July of 2021. So again, move towards summertime. A year later, and this is what is running on the news.
First, the Australian Army will take to Sydney streets, assisting police in locking down 2 million residents in COVID hotspot suburbs. The Police Commissioner calling the Prime Minister for help after Sydney's worst single day since the pandemic began. 239 infections were recorded, at least 66 were infectious in the community. And tragically, there were 2 more deaths. The Premier announcing a crackdown on those spreading the virus by doing the wrong thing, with fines beefed up for not wearing masks and even stricter rules in the 8 hotspot council areas.
If that doesn't sound like Germany, I have no,
Nazi Germany.
Nazi Germany, I should be clear. I mean, does that not sound fear? I mean, they're just trying to freak you out.
We're talking, okay, so this little thing says 239 infections. Think about how low that number is.
Dude, I have heard of sex parties. Just with 6 people walk away with more than that.
That's hilarious. The infection rate's been much higher, I think, probably.
But
That's so funny.
But
yeah, 239.
I'm trying to be serious.
Okay.
If I heard these numbers, isn't that again a moment to celebrate? Am I missing something?
It just seems so low.
I mean, I'm not saying that we should celebrate that these people are infected or got infected and a couple people died.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, as a whole, when you have something that's going through the world and trying to kill everybody, hey, this isn't looking too bad.
It doesn't look too bad, and yet
It certainly wouldn't shut down the whole place for it.
Yeah, and this is where they said there were 66 communities that were impacted with 239 infections, and so we're talking about there's a few different communities that have a small number of infections, but we're talking about still a relatively low number, but yet they're calling out the military to help the police enforce.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, my company that I work for, we've had more in my company infected than that. Just as a point, did we shut down my company? No. In fact, nope. We had to keep going in.
Mm-hmm. But they call the military on this small number.
Because, and you know why they have to call the military? Because these are free-minded people.
Yeah.
And they're smart. They know it's not necessary. And then to force them, I mean, everything he said is so shocking that it came from Australia.
Yeah. Yeah. I look at it from our perspective of what we've gone through so far. And I think, we've got a population of free-thinking people for the most part.
Yeah, true.
But they're probably in some of these circles are looking at we should be doing what Australia's been doing.
Oh, absolutely.
So next clip here, describing the police and military forces and how they were used.
Yeah. And
just listen to the last bit of this clip.
At Liverpool train station, police make their presence felt. Good man. Thousands more officers deployed in the southwest, in Campbelltown and in Bankstown, a new COVID crackdown.
We are seeing non-compliance at a level that's impacting on the virus.
The Commissioner enlisting the Army for support.
If we had to use them, absolutely I would call out.
Formally requesting 300 troops late this afternoon. In Melbourne, they were used at checkpoints, patrolled streets and door-knocked homes.
They assisted with compliance. They actually provided confidence.
They provided confidence.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh! To the powers that be.
Yeah, I'm not sure who's got the confidence out of this because
they're probably confident that they're going to get their asses kicked, right?
Mm-hmm. We're talking intimidation here.
Oh my gosh!
Follow the rules or else.
Right.
You start seeing people in military uniform patrolling your streets.
You don't know
for your population, not some foreign entity.
Right. We worry about that same thing, and guess what? A year ago, or maybe a tad more, I should say, we were concerned about that ourselves. And people were like, no, guys, come on. This is happening. We knew it was going to happen. We may not have known where or who, but honestly, I wouldn't have thought that Australia would be that way.
Think about the protections that we have as Americans. We have this Constitution that gives us some rights. It doesn't give us rights. It basically means that the government has to recognize our rights. One of those rights is the right to bear arms. The argument that a lot of people make about, we don't need guns, it's ridiculous. In today's world, it's very unlikely that our citizens would ever need to have protection against the government from tyranny, which is why we have the Second Amendment. Why are folks not looking at this and going, okay, it's not happening yet, but look how close we're getting.
Right.
That should be kind of a wake-up call.
Yeah, but good luck. You can't really wake up America, half of America. Mm-hmm. I think it's I really don't think it's possible.
Well,
and unfortunately, the other half of America, they already know.
I know. Well, I'll move on to the next clip here. So this one's just talking about the number of hotspots and these, mask requirements.
Oh,
honey,
The operation targeting the 8 hotspot councils, which had the bulk of today's cases, the most in Canterbury Bankstown, still high in Fairfield, Liverpool and Cumberland, only going down since yesterday in Georges River. From midnight, residents in all areas of concern can only travel 5 kilometres from home and must wear masks outdoors.
So what's funny about traveling 5 kilometers,
Mm-hmm.
So if let's say I'm traveling 5 kilometers, I'm going to go past somebody that's 3 kilometers out, and then I'll stop at my 5 kilometers. Well, that guy that's 3 kilometers out, he could travel 5 kilometers and overlap mine, but I happen to give him high five and gave him COVID.
Yeah.
This is like almost like a
It's just a stupid, idiotic rule.
right.
It doesn't make sense, does it?
It's control.
Yeah.
So I got to ask you, what are those numbers again on that map?
So we've got a map on screen. Those of you listening, I'll kind of go through some of these. This is all in the New South Wales area and part of the northern part of Victoria. We've got all these different, in the United States, we would probably call these counties, but we've got, they say, hotspots. They've got Campbelltown, 12, Liverpool, 32, Fairfield, 45, and then some of these other outskirts have small numbers, and they're just talking about targeting these specific areas with these particular forces, military, and they're, of course, limiting the 5 kilometer radius. I don't think, and these are just cases, these are not deaths.
Right.
They're trying to regulate transmission. They're not, I mean, yes, they're concerned, of course, about hospitalization. That was their original concern. And of course, they're concerned about deaths, but their death rate is actually pretty low.
Right. They're just talking about infection.
Transmissions,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course, then they institute this must wear masks outdoor. How ridiculous. We already know there's science to support that you don't need to wear masks outdoor.
That's a problem with these free-thinking human beings, because they know that doesn't compute. And then they know that they're just getting treated like livestock.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't go with human beings very well.
So the first part of the clip was a police officer. Actually, it was the last clip, but there was a police officer at a train station and saying, "Hey, put your mask up." It's one lone guy walking through a train station that's outdoors.
Right.
There's no one around him, and he's getting told to put his mask on.
Right.
I mean, that's how
control.
Ridiculous it is.
It's control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
And I'll tell you what, how about this? What if the cops ignored that and didn't go say anything?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe another one of the cops would turn him in because he didn't, he wasn't doing his job in, spreading the fear and controlling the society.
So this next one is where I start to get more concerned because, again, some of the issues that we're talking about is just the authoritarian characteristics of this lockdown, government coming in and taking control. We experienced something similar during Thanksgiving of last year.
Oh yeah,
where we had neighbors turning other neighbors in.
We had our government
Mm-hmm.
convinced a handful of people, so it worked,
Mm-hmm.
to tell on your neighbor for how many people that you have in your house. Because they can't think that even if you had 2 people in your house, once they disperse, they could still give it to somebody else, whether it's 15.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yep.
I don't know.
This next clip highlights this.
Oh.
Doors.
It's been apparent to us where the virus is circulating, where the problem areas are.
One of the biggest problems, people visiting other households. Officers will come knocking.
And not random, but certainly targeted from complaints through Crime Stoppers.
We are now getting tens of thousands of people reporting breaches through Crime Stoppers.
My gosh. So it sounds like the problem is that the cops show up to the house because they're showing up to these other houses that aren't theirs. They're doing it.
Crime Stoppers. We have a system out here called Crime Stoppers, and it's really it's a hotline to let authorities know if there is some dangerous person, someone have seen
for crime.
Yeah, seen someone do something bad, or if they're on a wanted list, you can
Right.
call Crime Stoppers and they'll investigate. Here, they're talking about their citizens calling Crime Stoppers to, to tell on their neighbor.
That's like me just calling Crime Stoppers to turn in somebody about burning on a no-burn day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
They're
out in the
using it for
country.
something else. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, out in the country, they have burn days.
Oh.
All these city folk
They're
listening.
like, oh, sorry, I didn't even think
What
about
does that mean? What do you guys burn?
What are
do
you burning, buddy? Puff, puff, give.
But it's so shocking to hear that your fellow citizens are calling these hotlines to turn you in.
Right.
And of course they're anonymous, but how many did you say? 10,000 different calls?
That's right.
Were coming in?
Yeah, and because they have because they have the military,
Mm-hmm.
they're out there.
Well,
they have the police, they're out there. So why not? Well, I mean, that's not good enough. So we have to have the civilians turn on each other.
Mm-hmm.
So why not? What's the point of having the police and the military? Because we have traitorous little. I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I think those people are losers.
Snitches get stitches.
Well, but then again, at the same time, how about this? I'll take. I'm going to take that back. I apologize. Here it is. Because the reason is because some of these people might be a little bit weaker minded, but how about this? These people listened and they got scared.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? It's not everybody's fault. Some people put their trust in what the people are telling them and they believe them. Sure, it could be their fault, but I mean, this whole thing is set to deceive people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's working. And they're so scared that they're going to die that they have to do this.
Yeah, I think we're going to run into some of that deceiving sort of talk.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's disappointing.
It is. Well, who was it? I was listening to radio personality Jesse Kelly, and he's I want to say he was a Marine. Is that right? Do you know?
I don't know.
And he's a military guy, now doing talk show, and a very entertaining guy to listen to. And, he's definitely a personality. He's really fun to listen to. He'll get left people really angry at him though for what he says.
He's doing his job.
But one of the points that he was making that I thought was kind of right along with my own take on things, and which is when you start to see people panic and you think this is growing, this panic is growing, maybe it's a time for you to sit back and think about it and to analyze, because when people start panicking, they make really, really poor decisions.
Yep.
When we get angry at different things, we try and let a little bit of time pass by to gather ourselves and start thinking. Your brain does not operate really logically when you're all hyped up and angry about stuff.
That's why all of us fools in America decided to, not us, not you and me,
Yeah.
but a lot of fools in America, they panicked, right? And they ran out and bought a bunch of toilet paper.
Yeah.
You should have gotten food. I'm just saying, because we're getting,
Mm-hmm.
because there's not other means to take care of that.
No, I guess if if you're panicking and pooping your shorts, then maybe that makes sense. But I don't think that was what was happening. But when you start to see a mass panic, that's the time where you start to kind of okay, it's time to start thinking about this a little bit more clearly. It's not time to panic just because everyone else is panicking. And you can see that along the storyline of COVID, there's been mass panic that's been perpetuated.
Man, that sounds
Sometimes
good to me.
my language, I don't know, I had to watch it. And so coming from the government and media and social media, the fear and the panic continues to grow and grow, and it makes people react very, very poorly.
Yes, I feel that the government, if they really cared about our health,
Mm-hmm.
they wouldn't put it in that one clip you played in that way.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't be set in such a, all right, what's it take to make a panic? Okay, it's step one, this, step two. Okay, let's just play that.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're not trying to help.
Yeah.
They're trying to make people freak out.
Yeah.
Because they know how to say something lightly. They've been just giving us a couple UFO hints a little bit at a time. They didn't just dump it all on us at one time. That's what they're doing here. Dump it all on them at one time. And they panic making dumb decisions.
It makes you wonder what's going to happen next that's going to create panic. Of course, they're just going to take advantage. What did Hillary say?
Hillary says never let a good... oh my gosh.
Brain fart.
Yeah. Never let a good...
It's almost there.
go to waste. Crisis go to waste. Oh my gosh.
I gotta fill in the blanks.
I'll take that as a compliment that I forgot a dang thing she said, because that means that she's kind of out of my head.
Sorry, I bring her back. So this next clip, police are given authority to shut down businesses on top of enforcing masks and other stuff. This is where I, as a small business owner, I go, this is not good. When you start getting police coming in to shut you down, it's a different
but at
story.
the same time, what about the big? How about this? America, they did the same thing in the beginning, and while Walmart's open.
Oh, right.
Because they're shutting down all these little stores, but are the big ones open still? Those are ran by big dogs.
Yeah.
Across all of Sydney, police have new powers to shut down businesses, construction sites and public spaces where there's a risk to public health. Fines more than doubled, now $500 for not wearing a mask when required.
It only takes a handful of people or a very small percentage to do the wrong thing to cause a setback for all of us.
Well, and they do have some of those stupid rules where, like, if you're talking into a microphone, you can take it off. Then you're not concerned about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's just ridiculous that you think about the police being able to walk in and just say, you're not following the rules, you're closing down.
Yeah.
And that be it.
They have that authority.
There's no due process.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
All right. So here's the next clip. I know this is kind of a clip-heavy show. It's fine.
I will tell you, it does paint a good picture of what they are truly going through and how they're doing it.
Yeah, and you're hearing it from other people, not just us.
Right.
Okay, so they're talking about the testing, the amount of testing that they're doing. It's going up, and they're talking about counting the infection rate. Now that testing is more common, they're going to find more cases, of course.
Yep.
And they're talking about, I think this is where some of that dishonesty starts to come in, because they're talking about the infections based on the number of infections and their age, which I think age, yes, means a little something, but by this time, this is again July of 2021 that this was released, we knew at that time that yes, older people are more impacted by it, but really it's people who have pre-existing health conditions.
Yeah,
those
exactly
are the folks.
Right.
But here they're talking about it as if it's just an age thing.
65% of COVID infections are in people aged under 40, 25% in people aged under 20. And the number of younger people becoming seriously ill is rising. Of 54 patients currently in intensive care, 4 are in their 30s, 8 in their 20s, 2 are teenagers.
They're young. Many of the cases are young.
But hitting the elderly the hardest. 2 more deaths. A woman in her 90s at Liverpool Hospital, a man in his 80s at Royal North Shore, both unvaccinated, taking this outbreak's toll to 13.
So on that clip, the little icon that they used for a dead man just kind of swung there like it was hung. If you didn't notice that, I'm telling you, every single thing that they use is kind of just to scare you, because that's
funny.
That's odd.
Folks are going to be rewinding this
I
YouTube
know.
video.
I'm like, why would they?
What are you talking about? Guy got hung?
Well, I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's funny. Their little graphics that they use. It does kind of look like
swinging on his head.
Yeah,
I'm just.
It's funny, but they're talking about these numbers, and this lady, she's the chief health officer, and we've got some more clips from her. This is what drives me crazy, because we've experienced it here in Oregon, where you get the health authority talking about something and making people panic because what they're saying is supposed to be coming from authority, but it's not terribly honest. She was saying that, there's so many young people who are impacted by this, but you know what? Most of those deaths are coming from old people.
Right.
What did they say that the number of people under 40 infected, 65% are under 40,
but they're not talking about.
Yeah, they're not talking about the deaths in this case. What's who cares about?
How about this? Is there more? There's probably a lot more people that are under the age of 40 than the older people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they just might get it more. Get more of those people to get it.
Yeah.
No.
Mm-hmm. It's just.
But how about this? Why would they? This is the thing that makes me question. You know that they are questioning this too. Like, why are they saying it like that? It's not. They're not talking to the real heart of it, because the real heart of it, I feel bad for the people that it passed, but isn't as bad as they say.
Well,
I mean,
yeah. I agree. I think that they frame it in a way to continually perpetuate
to
that
make
fear.
you so you will comply without effort or violence or.
Now, this clip is a little bit more along the lines of that dishonesty that we were talking about earlier, where there is a fair amount of people in positions to know the truth who are not exactly telling the truth. We were just talking about that lady who is the chief health authority, and she kind of outlines the deaths and what we should be thinking, considering these recent deaths. And I want you to listen to a little something towards the end.
25% of people over 70 are still yet to receive their first dose. I cannot urge you as members of the community to reach out and support your elderly family members and friends to get vaccinated. The vaccine does not work immediately in providing protection, but even one vaccine can reduce your risk of hospitalisation and death, and it can also prevent onward transmission.
Oh, what'd she say?
I don't know. I was going to ask you, what'd she just say?
And she said that the vaccine can prevent onward transmission.
Onward transmission.
That's a lie. You know that's a lie.
Yeah, it is.
There are so many cases of people who are fully vaccinated and boosted, still getting it and delivering it on to other people.
Right now. Yep.
And
everybody knows that's not the truth.
And we knew that when this thing was released.
Yeah.
This is from the chief health authority. It's a straight up lie.
Yeah. Right. And so, again, and I keep saying it because people need to know these are smart, free people, and they see. People are going to question, why are they acting out? Because they can tell, they could see, they know better. They know that this is a bunch of BS that they are getting forced to, comply to.
Yeah. It's just so dishonest.
Yeah.
It drives me absolutely
crazy. We
crazy.
deserve better than that. And it makes me think of, don't these people, like this gal, doesn't she have a heart, or, like, she's in a position, she knows the truth.
Yeah.
Doesn't she? I don't know. She's got to sleep at night, right?
I think she's part of a machine that's already moving in a certain direction, and so she needs to continue moving in that direction. This next one includes a little bit more. I think, from the same. From a different person. She's a politician. They call her a premier. So she's talking about the. This whole press conference is about, of course, these lockdowns and whatnot. This is the stage where the media starts to come in, and I think they continue to perpetuate the scare. And this is one of those instances where the media asks a question that is not questioning the authority and the process, but rather increasing the restrictions.
So it's like they're working for them or with them, huh?
Yeah. And I've seen this stuff from our local media as well.
Yes.
Premier, you've said that we don't know where the virus is going. It's a game changer. It's so contagious. All of these messages every day. So why not bring in these stricter rules around masks and distance? Why not bring them in for all of Greater Sydney to try and get ahead of possible spread so that we're not playing catch up?
Well, that's a great idea. Thanks for bringing that up. We will. I wonder if it's like Biden. Biden has a list of who he's going to call.
Oh.
And then, those people happen to ask these terrific answers that questions that he happens to might have an answer to right down here. Yeah, I'll call on you.
Yeah.
No, the one with that cheat sheet, please.
Yeah, because it perpetuates this whole narrative.
And it also makes it sound like that's what That's Australia. Them, the people want, and they don't.
But you can see that there's it's this constant idea that we need to keep making people more concerned and create some need for action from the population.
And they cannot let up on the smoke screen. They can't. They have to continuously blow the smoke. If once that smoke lets up, some of those people that are diehard believers into this will start looking around. And that's why it's just got to be continuous from all angles.
Yep. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about these COVID camps that Australia has started to create.
No, there's no such thing as COVID camps.
Oh, yes. Dave and I appreciate you listening to the show. Please take a moment and write a review on Apple Podcast or podchaser.com. And since Spotify doesn't currently have reviews, simply telling your friends about the show would be great too. Also, you can always reach out to us at our website, nevertooserious.com, or via our socials at the NTS Podcast. And seriously, from the bottom of our hearts, thanks again for listening to the show.
Oh my gosh, COVID camps.
Yeah, COVID camps. So we are back. COVID camps. There's one called Howard Springs. And this is in the...
Oh, that sounds lovely.
Doesn't it? Sounds like a little vacation
I actually would like to go. If I go to Australia, I'm going to Howard Springs.
You know what? If it wasn't that you'd be forced to go, it might actually be a decent place to like escape from.
Well, as long as you're, I don't know. As long as I don't have to get on a train to get there,
like cattle.
Yeah. Oh my gosh! And what's that say? Unheard?
Oh, that's so funny. So I've got a clip here. There's a story. This girl, Haley Hudson. She is one of these Aussies that got forced to go to one of these camps, and I think her story is very fascinating. She was in an interview, and she kind of tells some of the details about her experience. And we've already been talking about this authoritarian behavior from the Australian government.
Well,
and she got caught up in it.
Well, it makes you wonder. I'm being serious. I wonder if she got any backlash from the government because of how they are reacting these days about something.
And I think this is a relatively new one. In fact, I think I put a date down of when this story came out. This is I want to say it's recent, as in the last couple of months.
Well, hopefully they'll let us play the clip.
Yeah. Oh, hopefully.
Maybe they'll take it down before you get to it.
We're already banned on YouTube. Don't worry about it.
Oh, excellent.
So, in case folks want to actually watch the video, we are on Spotify in the video format.
Ah, yes.
Like Joe Rogan was early on. So so catch the video of the podcast on Spotify. All right, here's the clip from Haley.
Okay, so how it all started was a friend of mine went to work and got tested for COVID. He had a little bit of a cold. He tested positive. He got put into this quarantine camp, and then we went about our days as normal, and then the investigators starting to knock on our doors and stuff like that. So then what actually happened was I had investigators come. I walked out the front of...
Just to interrupt you, so how did they investigate you? Were you part of a contact tracing kind of
good question.
list? Or?
So what they did is how they contacted me was I have a scooter and they ran my number plate, and they ran the number plate and seen the footage that I was with the person who had tested positive, and that's how they knocked on my door and knew where I lived from running my number plates.
And mind you, we have missing people, and these people are putting all their freaking time and efforts and energy, and they could do this, stalk you like this. But if they could do this kind of stuff, we should be able to find these missing people way faster. This is disturbing.
We had an episode relatively recent about China and them being a surveillance state. They have cameras everywhere, and they have the ability to track people,
facial recognition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this person, Haley, she was working with this other person who tested positive, and she didn't, she wasn't turned in by anyone, and she just went home, did her normal thing, and they found her because of that dang license plate on her scooter. I just think
kind of
how
concerning.
Intrusive is this?
You'd almost even think, gosh, is there a camera in here? Is my phone bugged? Oh, well, you know. And how about this? What's kind of funny? Everybody knows that the abilities for a lot of these smart devices, the cameras to be turned on, and laptops and all this stuff. You know, when we see, at least in this country, our FBI people, and they pull out their laptops and they have a piece of tape over it,
over their camera.
Yeah, there's something to it, right? And we don't even know the extent. You know, maybe that was super easy for them to find her. Maybe it didn't take much for them to maybe it didn't take much for them to hunt her down, because we don't really know the depths of our government's abilities or what they use.
Yeah, their capabilities. Have we done a show on Edward Snowden? I don't think we have.
Well, I think we've talked a little bit about him, but not in depth, I don't think.
Maybe we'll have to go pull some information on him and do a show, because he's got some really interesting stories to tell about government surveillance. So this next clip,
very interesting, in fact.
Yeah. Well, and there's I think, I don't know if it's on Netflix, but there's like a movie about it.
Yeah.
It's a little shocking. So this next clip, Haley, she's talking about basically getting picked up from this, you know, the authorities. They send her away to this camp, and the camp is pretty far away from I guess civilization, and it's a relatively new camp. So it's like these smaller, I won't say homes, but they're like, you know, like a mobile, like a trailer type of thing. Like, I would almost imagine almost like a FEMA type trailer.
Yeah.
But they're all set up with fencing and all of these different things.
Fencing, huh?
And when she goes there, she has to stay. She's got all these rules that she can't do any of these things. She has to be isolated. And she went in, and they basically said, when she got picked up, she said that the authorities, when they came to her house, she's like, they were asking, you know, have you been tested? And she said, yes, she's been tested, but she came back negative. And the authorities went away. Turns out that they can look up whether she's been tested or not. They called her back and said, hey, we don't have any record of you getting tested, and we're going to send someone over to give you a test. And she says, okay. And so evidently those people didn't show up, but the authorities showed up and picked her up to take her, because what happened is she lied to the authorities. So they're going to take her anyway. And she's like, well, can't I just take a test and be done with it?
But mind you, they don't like take her to the jail or to book her or to give her a fine. They take her to the COVID camp where she doesn't have COVID, but you will.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So she basically is caught in a lie, and they take her anyway. And they said, yes, you'll be tested at the camp, and then, you know, you can be released or whatever. Well, this is kind of her story about when she was there. And I think it's kind of telling about what
goes
like.
on.
Yeah, correct. So I went to the bin to put something in the bin that I was not wearing a mask. Mind you, I actually have an exemption. I don't need to wear a mask. I have a medical condition. And the person that came to hand me the notice was another police officer.
So what's the go?
So this, I'm going to give you a warning, yeah? It's an official warning that you have to stand above and obey the rules while you get, yeah? And we have to go the rules again. I don't care.
So am I allowed to go to the laundry?
You're allowed to go to the laundry, but you got to wear a mask, yeah?
Yeah, righto.
Yeah. And you definitely can't go up to fencing routes, but you're allowed to go to the laundry, yeah? That's always been the case, yeah?
Right, so if I was sitting just here, which is right near the fence, why are these guys in a cabin that's right near the fence? It makes no sense, does it?
Yeah, but you can't leave your balcony to go to the fence to talk to somebody else. That's just obvious, yeah?
So if I was at that balcony...
Have to make sense. So there has to be lines everywhere drawn, yeah? And one of the lines is you cannot leave your balcony and you cannot go to someone else. Where it makes no sense or it doesn't seem right to you, that is the line, and that's what the law is there, and that's how it goes, yeah?
The law?
Well, the show direction.
There's a law that says that.
Show direction, yep, there's a show direction, yeah? And how the behaviour must be done, especially in this area, because it's much more highly infectious and likely to have infected people, yeah?
Highly infectious when all of us people are negative.
So far, the risk is still very high, yeah?
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so...
Does that not say a lot?
So maybe the audio is a little bit quiet on this one, but she's at this camp. She gets in trouble for walking off her little porch without a mask. And they're basically saying, hey, there's a yellow line here. You can't cross it. And if you do cross it, it's a $5,000 fine. And we're not going to give you that $5,000 fine this time. We're just going to give you this warning. But you do it again, $5,000 fine. And they're trying to describe to her how dangerous it is. And she's
pointing out all these other things that they're bypassing. That's more dangerous.
She has been taking COVID tests since she started there. And she's come back negative each time. She's been talking to the folks nearby. They're also negative. So they already know that they're negative. So what's the danger of them walking outside these lines? Oh, it's the rules. It's still dangerous.
That's right.
They've already been testing. It's not dangerous because if no one has tested positive for COVID, you know COVID's not there. Where's the danger? It's rules that make absolutely no sense.
And then you have somebody like that guy that doesn't even care if it doesn't make sense. Oh, well, yeah, I know. It's just that. And he's got to go home and sleep too, right? Knowing that he has people in cages that for COVID that don't have COVID.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's
people get slowly.
So she goes on to tell the story, and she's there for 14 days. They lied to her initially. Yes, you test negative, we'll send you back home. Of course, she tests multiple times when she's there. They keep her there the entire time, basically as punishment.
As a punishment, absolutely.
And in this time, she's lost her job because her job, I think she worked in like retail or something, and they don't, they don't pay for a vacation.
I even got the impression that she may not even gotten to batten down the hatches in her home.
Yeah, I think she had like a roommate or something.
Oh, well, lucky for her.
Yeah.
It sounds like they would have took her out before, like, well, I got to do this or prepare. I couldn't go. For me to go to the store, I'd have to make sure I have a bunch of things taken care of. I mean, does she have an animal?
Yeah.
Thank goodness that she has a roommate, I guess. Except for why didn't the roommate get pulled away because she just, was with her.
I know.
It's all a punishment.
Because none of it really makes logical sense.
That's right.
They've made these policies, and now they have people enforcing the policies, even though the policies really don't make any sense.
But all it takes is a cocktail and a conversation for everybody to tear it apart.
Yeah. So, I think that's an interesting story that she had to go through, and they were creating more of these camps in different parts of the country.
I will say, thank goodness she got let out of the camp. I've heard about other camps that aren't as nice. So at least it's a camp that you do get eventually released.
So we're starting to move on here with these vaccinations because the country has really started to realize, you know what? We really need to get people vaccinated, and if we get people vaccinated, then we can go back to normal, supposedly. So
why would they believe that?
So this is a news clip from CNN in Australia, and this what do you call the reporter person? The person at the front desk here is talking to a professor at a hospital. He's a doctor, but he teaches at this place, and so they're talking about basically what herd immunity is supposed to be, and it kind of being a moving target.
I mean, you're never going to be able to pin it down because the vaccinations wane in efficacy. So you're never going to be able to have a finite, okay, everybody is 70% vaccinated, because you're going to need boosters for the people who got vaccinated 8 months ago.
No, you're quite right. That's what I was saying. As wonderful as the vaccines are, with the waning immunity and Delta being so infectious, we're never going to achieve herd immunity. So it is going to be a matter of vaccinating as much of the population as we can, catching up with booster doses, and working around that. And we will, all those measures, those COVID-safe measures we've been seeing around the world, social distancing, wearing masks, those things are here to stay. So it won't be a completely normal life for a very long time, Robin.
There to stay.
Yeah.
And, that's what they're trying to do in my state, our state.
Yeah.
So this is a global issue, and bringing up, what Australia is going through can highlight what we could be going through ourselves. Or excuse me, do I dare say what we will be going through ourselves?
And in some cases have.
Yeah.
So our country has some, well, I mean, there's different levels of of governance. We've got basically the federal government, and then we've got states. And states, in some cases, can institute things that are more restrictive than what a state right next door would do. And I think Oregon has implemented a lot of these things. I mean, we were one of the first states that required vaccine mandates in, like first responders and public education, and there's a few other industries. Yeah. And otherwise, you lose your job, which again is ridiculous.
It is.
We have a clip. This is from, again, the CNN news story, and they're talking about needing to get to the 70% vaccination rate.
Yeah, you just got to.
Australia's New South Wales has just reported another 800 new COVID cases, a slight drop from Sunday's record daily high. Meantime, the Prime Minister says the strict COVID measures will come to an end once the vaccination rate hits 70%.
Okay.
So it's funny because they are being black and white about that. It will end, and it won't. It won't. Why would it end? Because, there's going to be another variant which says, ooh, we need to get y'all.
There's always another one. So guess what the current vaccination rate is in Australia right now?
I don't know. I was hoping you had that tidbit because I wanted to. I got preoccupied and I missed that. So lay it on me. I'm curious. 2%.
So yeah, as of today, 78% have received at least one dose.
But they're not fully vaccinated.
No, but fully vaccinated, 73.8%.
Yeah, but fully, is that the booster though?
But that's not 70%, so that's still lockdown time.
Oh, so they got to actually a couple people to get it back down to 70?
Yeah, exactly. They have to sit at 70%.
Only.
And that's
the old people are getting hacked.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It is. And that proved my point then. Because I didn't know. I knowing that, I truly didn't. I thought they were maybe in the 40s, 50s. But okay. And so this has got to get the population quite heated up, right? I mean, you were talking about some stuff was going down and people are getting angry and protesting. And this is why. I mean, why wouldn't you? I mean, they straight lied to you. And to be fair, the gal that we watched that, she lied so she got punished. They lied to her saying that she was going to get let out. I mean, it's just the whole, every aspect is about deceiving everybody.
It's moving,
almost on every angle.
Moving the goalposts, making it a little bit harder to achieve.
And how do I even believe that there's 800 people that really got, I mean, if you're going, how about this? If you go to court, okay, and you fib about one thing, you could lose your case 100%. You could get kicked out. Hell, you could be fined. But if you if you lie, it ruins your integrity, and they will think that everything else is suspicious or suspect. And that's this. So when they lied, we've already noticed a couple lies, straight, deliberate lies. So when I see the numbers, how do I even know those are real numbers? Why not those be lies too? Might make a country pissed.
So there's, of course, there's a lot of these different protests that are going on because these are free people who don't want the lockdowns anymore, and they keep, of course, moving the goalposts. They were floating this bill that basically gave the government even more ability to lock things down and make it an emergency. Even just here in the state of Oregon, Kate Brown, the governor, kept extending the emergency order. And that's what they were doing in Australia. And so there's a little article here. I'll just read a couple little paragraphs. It says, critics of Victoria's proposed new pandemic power legislation says it is the most extreme of its kind and will give the Premier and Health Minister too much control, while the legislation has become the focus of anti-lockdown and anti-vaccination protesters in Melbourne since restrictions eased. The Premier, Daniel Andrews, canceled a press conference in Bendigo this week due to security concerns related to a small group of protesters targeting the Victorian Premier over the bill. Well, unfortunately, the bill just passed.
Really?
Yeah, so now the government has even more power to basically legislate when an emergency is and how long that emergency can go. Because before, I think they said that they had restrictions on the amount of time that they could have an emergency, and it couldn't last more than 6 or 9 months. Well, of course, this has gone way beyond that. So this bill allows them to extend and change the rules so that they don't have these restrictions of time.
Right. Oh. Well, it's good that they're looking out for the people, right? That's what they're there for, right?
Yeah.
I thought.
Mm-hmm.
But what? Okay.
There's this guy that he's kind of like one of these little like independent news reporters. He works for a company called Rebel News. His name is Avi Yemeni's.
Oh.
Or Yemeni. That's what it is, Yemeni. And he's got some really great stuff on YouTube. I highly suggest going and checking him out because he has a few like people support him. He goes out, does man on the street interviews. He gets himself in the middle of these different protests, asks questions. And you can see us being here in Oregon and it having so close to the protests that have taken place in Portland from both left and right, and how the riots have turned out from the folks on the left. He's in the thick of that sort of stuff in Australia, and he just brings some obvious points to light of these people who are anti-fascist, marching, looting, rioting, creating all of these really bad problems. How almost ironic it is that they consider themselves anti-fascist when they're acting like
I know.
fascists.
Did they like get in a plane and fly over there? I mean, I thought they lived in Portland.
Yeah, I guess they're everywhere.
They're getting around the world, huh?
They are getting around the world.
I wonder where they're getting the support from. I wonder.
Yeah, I highly suggest that folks go and check out his stuff on YouTube, or just go to the Rebel News website. They have good articles and blogs and video footage. Now, one last little clip that I had here, I think is important because this came out in middle of November of 2021, and we're not talking Australia, we're talking Austria.
Okay.
And I think this might just be, considering where we are, all the stuff we've gone through, this might be something that is adopted by a lot of other places.
Oh, it's got to be good news.
Austria's government has approved a new lockdown which will only apply to unvaccinated people. Starting at midnight on Sunday, the government said people who haven't been vaccinated will only be allowed to leave their homes for essential reasons, such as working, shopping or taking a walk. The lockdown is intended to push more people to get the jab against COVID-19. Austria's decision comes just 2 days after the Netherlands announced a partial lockdown for all residents. Austria has one of the lowest vaccination rates in Western Europe. Together with Chancellor Alexander Schallenberg, Interior Minister Karl Nehammer held a press conference a short while ago. Here's what he had to say.
As of tomorrow, every citizen, every person living in Austria must be aware that they can be checked by the police at any time. Among other things, we will also check if people have been vaccinated or recovered and the reason for entering public spaces.
Mm-hmm.
It's everything that we fear. It's everything that the conspiracy D-bags had said in the very beginning. But they're not conspiracies. They're people that are aware and can see where this is going.
It's kind of scary.
Yeah. Well, and guess what? It might be accepted there more than here. I don't know. How about this? I should say, are they going to just take it? Okay. I would hope that if that was America, we would be like, good luck with that one. But they're kind of, to be fair, America's doing a lot of this. I'm not saying I don't know the percentages, but there's so many people moving. They're almost kind of just going in their own way, or kind of going into their own type of people.
I'm concerned about the small number of people who end up making these. They're like the squeakiest wheel out there. There are minority folks that they're expecting to have the government control everything, and what happens is because they are the squeakiest wheel, they get their way.
Yep.
When the majority really, they don't want the lockdowns. They want things to go back to normal. The vaccines have been available for a very long time, and if you haven't gotten it, that's because you chose not to get it, and so you worry about the consequences.
Who in their right mind, truly, would like to be having a mask or a covering on your face for the rest of your life? I mean, in your right mind would go, I'm down.
Yeah, you get paranoid enough about it, and you might be brainwashed into doing it, and you might accept it. But
and then they're no longer in their right mind.
And they're no. I agree. Yeah. Okay, well, let's wrap it up. I'm
going to say a little prayer for those guys.
Yeah.
I tell you, they are going through a lot, and I wouldn't even know how to help.
Mm-hmm. I don't know either. I just think we need to use them as an example. Of what could potentially happen.
Be prepared.
And let's not go down that pathway.
We are all better than that, including them.
Yeah. All right. You can find more information about the show on our website,
nevertooSerious.com.
And you can find us on social media at the NTS Podcast. And I guess for now, we'll just leave it there. Does that sound good?
That sounds great.
All right. Take care. We'll see you next time.
And be safe.